Hello, everybody. As most of you know, my name is Joe, and I'm going to be giving a presentation today, just a little bit of refresher and education on everybody about the OSHA Act and workplace safety, as well as OSHA and other things involving your guys' safety. The OSH Act, also known as the OSHA Act, stands for the Occupational Safety and Health Act. The main job of this act is to try and eliminate and prevent any hazards that can take place in the workplace or in the field. When it comes to these standards, they can actually vary a lot because it depends on the field that you work in and the case or the state that you work in. In our case, as pipeline workers in Michigan, we have a lot different standards than say someone working in retail or working in an office setting, just due to the things that we are exposed to and the things that they're not. And as we all know, some of these rules can be a little bit nitpicky, but the main goal is to keep employees, you guys, as safe as possible against all type of threats. And the best way for us to be able to do that is by following the rules and following the standards. The important thing to think about when it comes to the OSHA Act is how it came to be. The act was passed in 1970 by President Nixon in the executive branch of government. The precursor to the OSHA Act was the Department of Labor, which was created in 1913 by President Taft. This eventually led to Francis Perkins, who was the Secretary of Labor, to implement what we know as the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and this was in 1933. A lot of the things that the Bureau of Labor Statistics did and were in charge of also became a part of the OSHA Act's responsibility. And one of the main reasons that the act was even passed in the first place was due to the chemical revolution. This was because it was shortly after World War II, and the industrial production was booming at this time, and there were a lot of new chemicals that were being used and they weren't being regulated. This led to the public becoming upset because they felt like they were unprotected and they were being harmed by these things. Nixon and a lot of the government took notice, and this led to the OSHA Act being passed in 1970. With the act being passed, there were also some counterparts that came from it. One of these is that there were new agencies that were created. There was OSHA, which is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, which most of us have heard of. Then there's the OSHRC, which is the Occupational Safety and Health Review Commission. And there's also NIOSH, which is the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health. These all have different responsibilities. For example, OSHA is in charge of administering and enforcing the OSHA Act, while the OSHRC is in charge of hearing appeals and enforcement actions, so they're separate from OSHA. And then there's NIOSH, which provides scientific and technical support to OSHA. There are also state plans that are separate from OSHA. Like in Michigan, we have MyOSHA. And the thing with these is that they do have to be approved and proven to be as effective, if not more effective, than OSHA, which is the federal program. When it comes to the enforcement of the OSHA Act, OSHA is the one in charge of doing so. They do this by sending out compliance officers to do inspections on companies. Back in 2017, there were only 32,396 inspections that were done. Now, this can seem like a large number, but in reality, it's quite small, because the number of workplaces that can be inspected in the nation is well into the millions. The inspections usually happen by the inspector arriving unannounced, and the reason that they show up could be for two reasons. It can be one, that it's a scheduled inspection that OSHA planned, or it can be because of an incident that has happened recently that they are coming to inspect. Now, the employer can refuse the inspection and make OSHA get a search warrant. However, OSHA can avoid this by making sure that there's an emergency or that there's a hazard in plain view, and even if there's a party that consents. We know that OSHA is the one in charge of enforcing these rules, but how do they do so? One of the main ways that they do this is by giving citations, and these citations oftentimes come with fines. Now, these fines are capped at $20,000, and they can also lead to a year in prison. The citations also include an abatement period. Now, this is a period of time that determines how long a company has to correct their problem before an inspector comes back out to reevaluate the issue. So, another key thing with these violations is what type of violation they are. There are serious violations, there are repeat violations, there's also ones that are labeled as unclass and other. But the worst of them is a willful violation. And these violations are when a company knows that they are violating a standard, but they continue to do so and put the lives of others at risk. These can lead to jail time and fines that are higher than the cap and can really cause problems for a company. On this slide, I provided a few examples of inspections and what people were cited for, and I made sure that they're in our industry, in the pipeline industry, so that way they can relate to what we know and what we work with on a daily basis. So the first one that I want to talk about is 3 years ago. There's a company called Platinum Pipeline, and they are in some serious trouble, and as they rightfully should, because at 11:30 a.m. on July 27th, there was an employee who was preparing to place a pipe in a 14-foot and 10-foot wide trench. Now, the trench walls were not shored, and it collapsed into the trench, killing the employee. Now, this is leading to them being in a lot of financial trouble and also trouble for the company and their managers, because jail time is also in play for this scenario. Now, there was another one that happened 3 years ago, and this was just a planned inspection that OSHA was already planning on doing, and they had a total of 12 citations and $21,000 in fines. And this is what we like to see, because they got to it before anything serious happened, and all these citations should be taken care of by the company. And this is where OSHA really has benefits, because it can lead to the prevention of things, and that's what we're trying to do, because we don't want to find something too late and potentially have the death of an employee on our hands. As a company, it's our job to make sure that you all, as employees, are as safe as possible. And now we can do this by following OSHA standards and guidelines to make sure that everything is as safe as possible. But as we all know, if it's an individual thing or if it's even a group thing, sometimes things slip through the cracks and violations happen. Now, when this comes to be, it's your guys' job to come to us or your manager or anyone, and if you see something that you think's a violation, or you're not sure, or you know it is, please come to us, talk to us about it. Then we can sort it out. And as always, we are the ones who want to be able to take care of this issue, because your safety is our number one priority. But if you feel like we are not doing a satisfactory job, or if you feel that your issues are not being taken care of, then feel free to go to OSHA yourselves and report an incident or something that you think could lead to an incident. Because like I said, your safety is our priority, and if we can't do our job, then someone else needs to make sure that we can keep you guys safe. Thank you everyone for taking some time out of your busy days to come and listen to this and get a little bit of education on what the OSHA Act is and how it's enforced and all that good stuff. And here's some of my sources if you want to do your own research or look into some other cases. And as always, if you have any questions, come find me. And again, just thank you for your time.